Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another episode of A View from Tracy's Point, and I am so excited. My show is back on, Being Mary Jane. So I'm here to do my recap. It's season 4, I believe, episode 1, and this episode was entitled Getting Nekkid. And so it's been 1 year since the last season ended. And earlier in the night, Mary Jane meets with a matchmaker. And so the woman wants to know if Mary Jane has issues. And so she's been in town for like 2 days, and she's paid this woman $20,000 to help her find love. But you can tell the way the lady's looking at Mary Jane that she knows this ain't gonna work out. And so she tells Mary Jane that, even though she's paid the $20,000, that this is just the beginning of the process, and that she has to go through an assessment. And then once she goes through the assessment, she'll get back with her and let her know if she'll be able to help her find someone. But she really thinks that Mary Jane needs to get settled into New York and try and get herself acclimated to the area, make sure that's where she wants to be at, before she starts looking for love, and that she should wait a couple of months. But Mary Jane's like, no, I know what I want, and I need you to help me find somebody. And so, her and Kara have left Atlanta, and they're now in the Big Apple, and Mary Jane is now a correspondent, which I guess is like a step down from having her own show and being an anchor. And the show is sort of like Good Morning America, and I think it was called Good Day USA, where basically you have the main people that are in the studio, and then you have these other people that are like out and about interviewing people like on the streets and stuff. And so it's really cold, and Mary Jane, she has to get used to that. And so her and Cara go out that night, and she tells Cara that she's no longer interviewing boys in her bed. And so this is going to be like her last night to do a hookup. And, she tells Cara about she's hired this matchmaker, and she's paid this woman $20,000. And Carl was like, girl, what are you talking about? Is Barack leaving Michelle? Like, who are you fixing to get for $20,000, paying somebody to hook you up for $20,000? And so, Mary Jane thinks that it is the way to go, and this is what she wants to do. So we'll see how that works out for her. And so this guy, he comes over, and he knew her name. And so she immediately eliminated him. And when Cara was like, well, he was fine, girl, what was wrong with him? And she says, well, he knew my name, and plus I don't have my non-disclosures ready. And I'm thinking, dang, is sex done came down to we got to have non-disclosures and signing contracts and stuff when you go to bed with somebody? Like, too far out there, Mary Jane. Maybe you need to slow your roll. And so she sees this guy off in the club, and she thinks that he'll be good for Cara. So she sends Cara over to meet the guy. And then she hears this other guy talking at the bar, and he has like a British accent. And then she makes, a connection with him, and he comes over and he tells her that, I think he said he was from London. And next thing I know, Mary Jane got the man at her apartment, and she about to bang him. And I'm just like, same old Mary Jane, same old Mary Jane. And so she goes in the bathroom, and she's trying to call Cara, I guess to talk her out of it, or to let Cara know that, she took this man home, and now she's regretting doing it because he might be psycho or something. And she's talking about, but, we went by 2 doors, so he's on the security camera if anything happens. Too soon, too much. And so she goes back into the bedroom with the guy, and I guess they undress, and she puts a rubber band on his wrist, and she's telling him that when she pops the rubber band, that means for him to go faster and go harder. And the guy's kind of like looking at her like she's crazy, but he's in the moment, so he's gonna go for it. So then they're in bed, and they're all hot and heavy and everything, and then he kind of senses that she's uncomfortable. So he stops and asks her, is everything okay? And she says yes. And he says, I'll stop if you want me to. And I guess that was like a sort of like a shout out to the rape culture thing. And so she says, no, she's good. And he says, no, I want you to tell me that you want me to continue. And so she tells him about the whole rubber band thing was a fantasy she's always wanted to live out, and it came from some movie that she saw in the 80s or something she was talking about. So anyway, they end up, getting into it. And and then he asked her, what did she want? And then she told him finally that she wanted him to say that, say I love you. And so the guy kind of looked at her like, okay, I love you. So he did tell her that, and it was sounding all sexy and sensual, with his British accent. And also, like I said, we still got the same Mary Jane, new city, but the same old dirty, nasty ways. So the next day, Mary Jane, she walks onto the set, and she appears to be kind of overwhelmed by it all, because like a whole lot busier than the set when she was in Atlanta. And so she pulls Cara aside, and she admits to her that she didn't quit her job in Atlanta. She was actually fired. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Cara left the station before Mary Jane left the station. So she may have already been in New York, and then when Mary Jane told her that she needed a job, Cara helped her get the job in New York where she's at. And so her new job, like I said, she's working as a correspondent, and the name of the show is Good Day USA. And the lady who's like the main anchor on the show, I guess she's like an idol of Mary Jane, and Mary Jane has been following her like her entire career. And so her dream is to one day be in that seat and have, well, not necessarily that lady's seat, but to be the anchor of her own show. And so the lady, her name on the show is Rhonda. I can't think what the actress name is, but I think she played the aunt in that movie with Paula Patton, and well, she got engaged. I can't think of the name of it. Dang. Anyway, she's an actress that we're familiar with. And so she's interviewing Cory Booker, and Mary Jane tells Cara to tell her to ask Cory Booker a question. And so the question was about the high rate of school suspensions or something. But when Rhonda asked the question, then Cory Booker went on, and he get into the discussion about mass incarceration and the pipeline to prison. So after the interview ends, she comes out, she's thanking Cara for the question, and Cara lets her know, it was Mary Jane's question. And Mary Jane starts talking about how she has, wanted to interview Cory Booker, and so she had been studying him and learning, all about him, so she would be prepared if she ever got the interview. But of course, it wasn't her interview to do. So then we have a scene that moves back to Atlanta. And so we have, Shaft and Suge Avery, who's Mary Jane's parents, and they're sitting there watching the newscast, and they're trying to catch, the little segments that Mary Jane does. And so when she finally comes on, they're yelling out to Patrick, to come, catch Mary Jane. But before he gets in there, her little segment had ended, and, he missed her. And so he was arguing with Niecy. And remember when the season ended last year, Niecy was the victim of police brutality, and they had tasered her. And so he's trying to get her to write a complaint or write a statement or something, but Niecy doesn't want to be bothered. She's saying that she's trying to, get the kids out of the house and everything. And so she walks out, and then we later see Niecy where she's over with Dante. And remember, he's was he Hispanic? I think Hispanic boy that she had the last baby from. And so, he seems to really be liking her at this point. And so we find out that she's actually expecting a settlement from the city, from the incident that happened. And the reason she's so anxious is because the police officer is actually going back to work. They're going to let him back on the police force. And so he's basically telling her, get the money, and the money will make you feel better. Don't worry about him. But, of course, it didn't happen to him. It happened to Niecy. And so her reaction and her feelings are going to be totally different. Then the scene switches back to New York, and Mary Jane, she's out with the crowd, preparing to introduce a hip hop artist. And so everyone in the crowd is celebrating their birthday, and then Cara comes over the earpiece and tells her that there's a nice looking guy with a brown jacket on at the end, so make her way over and then talk to him for a few minutes. And so it turns out that the guy is Mr. London, who she had sex the night before. And so he's got mad game and everything, but Mary Jane is pretty much like, dude, Last night was supposed to have been like a Snapchat. You were supposed to disappear after you left or after I logged out or something like that. I'm like, damn, Mary Jane, that was cold. And so the guy, you know, he was kind of hurt, but you could tell that he's the persistent type. And so Cara is trying to get Mary Jane to save her $20,000 and actually go out with the guy again, because she says he seems like he's a really nice guy. But Mary Jane says no, she's not going to do it. Mary Jane is finally interviewing the hip hop artist, and it turns out to be some Chris Brown like lookalike. And so Cara's telling her, you know, to ask the guy different questions. And so through the interview, the guy had recently had a baby, but Mary Jane got him to say that he was still single and available on the market. And of course, Cara was all happy because they had scooped TMZ. And so when Mary Jane comes back out into the office, so when Mary Jane comes back out in the office, one of the guys, one of the employees, like I don't know, like an assistant or something, he hands her these 2 tickets, and the tickets are from Mr. London guy, and he wants her to come back to this club that they were at, which was really a comedy club, and see him perform. There was a scene earlier where the Rhonda lady was telling Mary Jane that, you know, she could use her stylist, you know, like the guy who does her makeup and her hair and everything. So Mary Jane goes in and, you know, the guy spoofs up her hair and everything. And he's basically like giving her a pep talk and telling her, you know, just hang in there and do good on the job. And so now we have Cara, where she's trying to bribe the guy into giving her some information and, you know, letting her know what the scoop is. And so she's like promising him tickets to the Super Bowl, you know, with airfare, hotel, whatever he wants, she'll do it. And so he goes into the office and tells her that Rhonda is trying to leave the station, and she's basically aggressively applying and interviewing for jobs at other stations. And so of course Cara goes back and she tells Mary Jane that, you know, when I got you out here, I was telling you in 2 years, but looked like it could be like in a couple of months, you know, just play your cards right and don't mess this up. And then we learned that much hasn't changed with Cara. She was supposed to fly back to Atlanta to spend some time with her kids, but a breaking news story comes up, and so she has to cancel the trip home to stay and work because, you know, of course, nothing can work without Cara being there putting her hands on it. So Mary Jane was supposed to have been going out with some of her colleagues, and she invited Cara to go, but Cara said she didn't want to go. And as they were on their way over there, I think the Asian girl that she was riding with, who was also, you know, like a correspondent or something, I believe she said that she slept with the executive producer, who's a guy named Garrett, and Mary Jane is supposed to be having lunch with Garrett the following day. And so Mary Jane, when they get to wherever they were going for drinks at, Mary Jane gets a call from the matchmaker, and the matchmaker pretty much tells her that she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and that she's not going to deal with her and that she'll be refunding her $20,000. And I'm thinking, dang, Mary Jane, how messed up must you be if the lady is going to give you $20,000 back because she just doesn't think that there's any hope or help for you? But that's what she does. So after Mary Jane gets the news that the lady is terminating her contract and doesn't want to work with her, she decides to go to the comedy club. And so she's checking the guy out, and he's doing some sex joke about banging some girl. And then she decides to leave. So as she's trying to sneak out, the guy comes up and behind her, and he was like, oh, was I that bad? And she was like, oh, no, you weren't. And so they get to talking, and I guess she decided since she can't get the help of the matchmaker, she might as well go ahead and sleep with him again. And so she basically tells him that she, you know, didn't like the way that they had met. And so he kind of flips the script on her, and he introduces himself to her and offers to take her to another bar or something, or for them to go get something to eat. But as they're walking down the street, she starts hearing like this Caribbean music, and she decides, you know, pulls him into the club. And so you know how it goes in them Caribbean clubs, you know, they do all that sexy dancing and everything. And so next thing we know, where does Mary Jane and the guy end up? Back to her apartment. And so then we have a scene that goes back to Atlanta, and it's Patrick, Niecy, and then the mom and dad, they're sitting around the table, and Patrick is reading like this op-ed piece. And I thought he had written the piece, and he was saying that he had been a victim of police brutality and how it had impacted his family. But then when he finished and Niecy had gotten up to give him a hug and everything and tell him, you know, it was a really good piece, the mom says Pauletta wrote that very well. So I'm not sure if it was the same thing that Patrick was trying to get Niecy to write earlier in the show, and then they got Mary Jane to write it, or if I was just really confused by that scene. But it was eloquently put, and I guess they are, I don't know if they've settled the lawsuit or if they're still in the process of the lawsuit, but Niecy is about to get paid. And when Mary Jane woke up the next day after her little tryst in the bed with Mr. London, she writes a note on this sticky, you know, letting her know that she had to go, and she taps it on his forehead. And I'm thinking, you just known this man for a day and a half, 2 days, and you're leaving him in your apartment? Like, girl, are you crazy? When he showed up, you know, on the set saying that it was his birthday, and then still left the tickets to the comedy place after she said she didn't want to see him anymore. When he showed up, you know, on the set saying that it was his birthday, and then still left the tickets to the comedy place after she said she didn't want to see him anymore, I'm thinking dude might have some stalkerish tendencies, but obviously, you know, Mary Jane don't pick up on them vibes at all. And also I'm thinking, you know, Mary Jane, she may be crazy and can't find love, but she sure can pick up the radar on these guys that are good in bed, because I don't think she's ever slept with anybody that didn't blow her bike out. So that's one good thing for her. So if you are going to be messy, Mary Jane, I guess you might as well be messy with somebody that's making you feel good. So Mary Jane heads off to work, and you know, it's the day that she's supposed to be having lunch with the executive producer. And so they go out, and he pretty much offers her a co-anchor position. And so she comes back and she's telling Cara about, you know, she's really excited when Rhonda walks up, and Rhonda, you know, says, "Can I have a moment with you?" And she takes her into her office, and she lets Mary Jane know, don't be getting excited. He is not giving you an anchor position or a co-anchor position. She says, you know, after we get through the sweeps, the rating sweeps, then I'm going to sign a 5-year extension to my contract. And, you know, and of course, Mary Jane is looking at her like, no, that's not what he told me, because I thought you were interviewing and looking for another job. And then Rhonda breaks it down for her and lets her know he took you to this restaurant. You ordered this for your meal. You had this for dessert. This is the kind of wine you had, and this is what he said to you. And she said, I'm telling you that that's what he does to everybody, and that they're just trying to boost the ratings by having the two black the two black women pitted against each other. She says, but I'm not going anywhere, and you're not getting my job. So she pretty much shut that down for Mary Jane. And then, of course, Mary Jane goes out to tell Cara that it was all, you know, it's not going to happen. And, you know, Cara's still trying to be hopeful. And we know Cara will be done set Rhonda up to get her out of there to get Mary Jane into that position. So I don't know how it's going to turn out. Oh, and then after Mary Jane came out, she ran into the executive producer. And he pretty much told her that on second thought, you know, he may not be able to offer her the job, and that he had talked to the people in HR, and they want her to wait until she gets through her probationary period. So I don't know if he came and said that to her because Rhonda had, you know, went upstairs and said something, you know, that she got wind that he was offering her the job. So I think this season is going to be Mary Jane and Rhonda going back and forth, and Mary Jane trying to unseat her out of that anchor spot. But look like it's going to be a good season, and I'm looking forward to it. Well, that was it for the season premiere. Looks like the season is going to be a battle of the boss black anchors, and I can't wait to see what Michael Ealy's crazy ass bring to the show, because you know every role he plays, he is like either stalking somebody or killing somebody. So, you know, we'll see how that works out. Do you think that Mary Jane is going to be able to unseat Rhonda in her position? Leave your comments below, and let's get the conversation started. Rate the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Please, please, please. And until next time, take care. Bye-bye.